Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night. This is the presentation for my oral exam for translation in general and literary text English to Spanish from University eExpro in the grade of LI6J on the 1st of July. My name is Alicia Elena Garmendia Castillo and my teacher Susana Somers Imani. Well, that's going to start, okay? In this introduction, I'm going to talk about the main difficulties about translating from English to Spanish or vice versa. Translating text from English to Spanish can present several challenges due to differences in language structures, vocabulary, and cultural context. Some of these main difficulties in translating could be the next one. And the main difficulties encouraged in this process are the linguistic differences, vocabulary and terminology, the false cognates, cultural nuances, ambiguity and context, colloquial expression and slangs, register on tone, length and expressions, and locations. About linguistic differences, from English and Spanish belong to different language families because the English come from the Germanic part and Spanish come from the Romance or the Latin Romance, respectively. With distinct grammar rules and word order, the translating sentence structures, idiom, and phrasal verbs can be complex, requiring careful consideration to ensure the meaning is currently conveyed. For example, sometimes we can find about the syntax and the structure of grammatical structure from English and to Spanish that could be so different in both of the cases. Vocabulary and terminology. In this part, the English and the Spanish have different vocabulary and terminology for various domains. Translating technical, scientific, or specialized texts may require extensive research to find the appropriate equivalents and ensure accuracy. For example, it's not the same to translate literally a story about Alice and Wonderland than translate an important lawyer case of a divorce or something like that. No, because the terminology is going to be like quite different. False cognates. In these false cognates are words that appear similar in both languages but have different meaning. Translators must be cautious and avoid misunderstandings and choose the correct equivalent word to maintain the intent message. That's why it's so important to have all the information when you're going to translate because a lack of information in those topics could be really a failed activity or process. The cultural nuances. Cultural differences between English speakers countries and Spanish speakers countries can affect the translation process. Translators need to be aware of cultural reference, idiomatic expressions, and local customs to adapt the text properly and avoid misinterpretations. It's, for example, in that part, like when you want to translate something that it's like in Monterrey, they make a story about something and they use their words and something that it's the same or have the same meaning, but they use words from Michoacan or from Yucatan. That means that we can have a little bit of differences in the culture, and that's when we have or the interpreter or the translator can have those malinterpretations. In the ambiguity and context, English sentence can sometimes be ambiguous without the appropriate context, making it challenging to convey the intent meaning accurately. Translators need to analyze the context thoroughly to choose the most suitable translation. In that part, it's like when we want to translate like literally, and sometimes that translation literally it's not correct as if we use other tools to translate, for example, an idea. Because sometimes when you say, like, for example, um, in this moment, I thought like, el que quiere azul celeste que le cueste. For example, that's an expression that we have. And if we translate it like literally, it doesn't going to have the correct interpretation or the correct meaning in the language. Colloquial expression and slangs. Like, for example, in Mexico, most of the slangs that we can listen or colloquial expressions, maybe we could find it in Mexico City because over there are a lot of towns, little towns, or like in Spanish we say like municipios that could have like expression like chale or chido, and those expressions to translate it's not easily to do it. That's why English is rich in colloquial expressions, slangs, and regional dialects, which can be challenging to translate into Spanish and vice versa, while retaining the original tone and meaning. Adapting these elements requires careful consideration of the target audience and cultural context. It's like for this example, if we translate it from Spanish to English, it's going to be like real, like the same kind of difficulty that expression in English to Spanish. Register and tone. English and Spanish differs in terms of formality, politeness, and register. Translators need to ensure that the translated text matches the desired tone, whether it's formal, informal, technical, or colloquial. It's, for example, like I remember like sometimes we read a formal letter from a young student that sent that letter to the principal, and the same letter that he sent it to his mom. And here we can have that pragmatic mistakes because maybe we can say like formally with the principal and a little bit informal with the mom. No, that's an example that I remember. Length and expansion. Translating from English to Spanish often leads to text expansions due to the structural difference between the two languages. This can cause changes when translating within limited space, such as marketing materials or users' interfaces. Localizations. Translating goes beyond word-to-word conversations. It involves adapting the content to the target culture. Adapting dates, currencies, mismeasurements, and other culturally specific elements is crucial for effective localization. It's like the example that I gave about Monterrey, Michoacan, and Mexico City and Yucatan, like in the same thing in New York, maybe the part of the southern in United States and the north part of the United States that they have like different kind of accents or way of talking. Those are some of the mistakes that we can have as a translator. In conclusion, overcoming these difficulties require experiences in both language, cultural awareness, and an understanding of the target audience. Skilled translator and language professional employ various strategies to navigate these challenges and ensure current and meaningful translation. For me, this topic of translating, it's uh, it's something that involves my heart because I would like to make translations, but in Japanese language. I want to learn Japanese. So thank you for your attention, and these are the reference. Thank you. Goodbye.
10.